The void shimmered where there should have been only stars. Against the silent black of deep space, a distortion pulsed once, twice, before unfolding into the sharp, symmetrical silhouette of a vessel unlike any Earth had ever imagined. It was called the Ethon Primaris, and it was not alone. From its vantage on the edge of the solar system, the command ship loomed like a thought half-formed in the mind of the cosmos. Behind it, smaller craft arranged themselves in disciplined formations, their hulls whispering of civilizations forged in silence and shaped by ancient logic. The fleet had traveled thousands of light years, drawn by a signal, not a distress call nor an invitation, a pattern, a code, radiating from a small blue planet that circled an unremarkable yellow sun. In the ship's observation chamber, High Ascendant Corell studied the planet's image projected before him. Earth, rotating slowly, its atmosphere curled in soft white clouds, masking a surface teeming with entropy. He folded his four-fingered hand behind his back, his expression unreadable to most, but not to Commander Tsali, who stood a respectful distance behind. "You're troubled," she said without looking up from her neural pad. "Curious," Corell corrected. "And curiosity is the threshold of danger." She nodded, fingers dancing across the pad to display streams of intercepted data. Broadcasts, imagery, conversations both casual and urgent beamed into space without thought of consequence. Earthlings were loud, restless, and yet deeply unaware. "They don't know we're watching," Tsali said, almost apologetically. "That is the most disturbing part," Corell murmured. "Any species that can cry into the void without wondering who might answer is either naive or protected." They had cataloged the emissions. Decades of music, war reports, sitcoms, scientific debates, and more war. Then silence, followed by a peculiar low-frequency rhythm buried deep beneath the noise floor. That rhythm didn't match human technology. It didn't even match known physics. It pulsed in a language neither biological nor synthetic, and it was getting louder. Corell turned from projection and gestured. A new display emerged, showing the signal structure, fractal geometry laced with symmetrical variables that map gravitational anomalies across the planet's surface. Someone or something had embedded a message in the very shape of Earth's magnetic field. "We have to go in," Tsali said, voice quiet. Corell hesitated. That planet has been screaming for 1,000,000 years, and no one has responded. Until now, the Council had not authorized direct contact, only observation. But Corell had not reached his rank by obeying every directive. Beneath his polished exterior burned a relentless need to understand, not just to observe history, but to step into it. "Dispatch a probe," he said at last. "Cloaked, low orbit, focus on the equatorial zones." The commander hesitated. "We're already inside their heliosphere. That's intrusion by our own code." He looked at her. "So let it be. If Earth holds what I suspect, the code won't protect us anyway." The probe launched silently. It slipped past Mars, adjusted its trajectory using slingshot gravity from the moon, and nestled itself in orbit like a fleck of ash in the wind. Below, Earth turned oblivious. Cities flared like neural fire beneath the night. Storms churned over oceans whose depths no longer remembered peace. The probe watched, listened, and sent its findings back to Ethon Primaris in encrypted pulses. They observed a species fragmented yet strangely unified in noise. Nations divided by borders but connected by invisible threads of information. Technology advanced far beyond their social maturity. Corell saw patterns that repeated across galaxies, civilizations on the brink of either transformation or extinction. But what unnerved him most wasn't what the humans did. It was what they didn't do. "We found it," Tsali whispered days later, eyes wide. "The core signal's origin. It's not human." Corell stepped forward. "A structure, not metallic, not mineral, organic, buried beneath Antarctic ice. The signal emerges from it in time pulses. How old? Pre-human. Pre-life as we know it. Older than any record we retrieved from the archive worlds." The projection showed it. An irregular shape deeper than the Mariana Trench, layered with unknown materials, vibrating in harmonic resonance with Earth's tectonic frequency. Corell stared. "Is it alive?" We don't know. It was then that Ethon Primaris shuddered. Just once. A small, nearly imperceptible pulse through the deck plating. Systems reported no impact. No error. But Kal-El felt it, not in his body, but in something older, deeper, the way prey senses eyes in the dark. "Abort probe surveillance," he said. "Why?" Solly blinked. "It knows we're here." Earth's magnetic field had shifted, not by much, but enough to alter the orbit of the cloaked probe by several centimeters. Enough that their stealth signal became visible. Just for a moment, the signal responded, not in threat, not in warning, in invitation. Kal-El had read enough human philosophy to recognize irony. After all their silence, Earth had finally spoken, but not to humans, not to its children. To them, he summoned the fleet's inner circle. Engineers, linguists, warfare tacticians. The room buzzed with anxious precision. 1,000 civilizations had been studied, dozens contacted, but never had a planet initiated. "This is not a planet," he said. "It is a construct, a vault, a message sealed in flesh and stone." Then why wait until now? Solly asked. Kal-El didn't answer. He was thinking about the prophecy recorded in the distant Vega tablets, those stone ruins inscribed by a race now long vanished. They told of a world cloaked in noise, a place where gods buried a key, and anyone who tried to unlock it would either ascend or disappear. The prophecy called it the Cradle of Echoes. Kal-El realized something else. Earth had not been waiting for them. It had been waiting for someone, anyone foolish enough to open the door. And they had. That night, as the stars wheeled behind his chamber's observation glass, Kal-El stood alone. His thoughts were quiet, his breath slower than usual. The presence he had sensed earlier was no longer watching from below. It was beside him. He did not turn. He did not need to. A voice, not spoken but etched into the hollow of his mind, whispered, "You were warned." Kal-El closed his eyes. He had expected wonder, revelation, even fear. But not this, not awe. "Prepare the ship," he said aloud, "for retreat." Solly asked from the doorway. He turned toward her, and for the first time, his voice carried the tremor of something ancient. "No, for entry." Outside, the stars dimmed ever so slightly, as if something vast had begun to stir, and Earth turned, unaware, or perhaps entirely aware, that its secret had finally been noticed. The Ethon Primaris descended into Earth's orbit like a god veiled in shadow, unseen by satellites, its presence a ripple across electromagnetic frequencies. On board, silence reigned. No one dared speak louder than a whisper. The signal beneath Antarctica, now fully decoded, was not a distress beacon. It was a lock, a containment, and they had touched it. Kal-El stood inside the neural interface chamber, tendrils of light pulsing softly around his temples. He floated weightless within a sphere of cognition, information streaming directly into his consciousness. He could see the ancient structure buried beneath the ice. Not a ruin, not a relic, but a design. Symmetrical, alive, breathing in rhythms far too slow for human detection. It was not built. It had grown. Solly monitored his vitals outside the chamber. "He's been in for nearly 2 cycles," she murmured. "Pulling out now risks damage." "He's not done," replied the neurosavant, a wiry being named Vel, whose silver skin flickered with residual synaptic light. "He's touching the source." Inside the interface, Kal-El felt it. The signal was not static. It responded, not like an AI or sentient entity, but something older, less individual, a will that spanned continents and epochs, woven into bedrock and weather systems. It didn't think. It remembered, and it remembered being violated. He pulled free from the link, gasping, his pupils wide and unsteady. His voice was hoarse. "It's not alien," he said. "It's Earth. The planet is self-aware. Not in a way we understand. Not intelligence, instinct, but engineered." Vel's eyes widened. Engineered by whom? Kal-El didn't answer. He was thinking of the carvings buried inside the subglacial vault. Images the probe had captured. Spiral motifs intertwined with humanoid figures, their eyes lifted to the stars. Every depiction showed the same theme, uplift followed by destruction. It was made to protect something, he said finally, or prevent something. That night, as Earth turned beneath them, the crew of the Ethon watched storms gather in unnatural formations over the southern oceans. Lightning split across cloud systems without precipitation, circling the ice like wolves around prey. Sensors picked up a pressure change in the stratosphere, one without any cause in human meteorology. And beneath the ice, the signal pulsed louder. Kal-El summoned the inner council again. The holograms formed in a circle, shimmering with distance and distrust. The other high commanders, far across the galaxy, wanted answers. You broke protocol. Accused Lord Merrick of the Zen-3 Corps. Direct contact without planetary consent. The Concord was clear. There is no Concord if the planet is not as it seems, Kal-El replied. We believed Earth a host to an emergent species. That was an error. Earth is not a host. It's a container. The others conferred in layered languages, untranslatable to human terms, before falling into silence. Then the vote. Majority, recalled the fleet. Quarantine the planet. Do not interfere. Kal-El ended the transmission before it concluded. He was not going to retreat. Not yet. Later, in the dim lights of his private quarters, Sally confronted him. You're not just curious, she said. You're scared. He looked at her, tired. I've never been scared of a planet before. They returned to the signal. The probe had mapped an entry point, a narrow fissure in the glacier that led to a hollow chamber of impossible geometry. Human drones had passed near it years ago and turned away, not because of physical obstruction, but because of an unexplained systems failure, an emotional spike in human operators, recorded but never explained. Fear, paralysis, disconnection. The aliens sent their own drone. As it descended through the ice, the interior of the structure lit up, reacting, not in warning, but as if recognizing something. Glyphs activated in ultraviolet bands. Layers of crystal shifted without mechanical assistance. And at the center, it found the source, a spherical core levitating in open space, suspended by forces unknown. Inside the sphere, a memory, not data, a memory. Vel analyzed it. It's a containment lattice. Organic, not to hold something physical, to hold an event. Kal-El narrowed his eyes. What kind of event? Vel hesitated. A restart, the collapse and reboot of intelligent life. Multiple times, across different templates. They watched as visual data scrolled past. Rapid simulations of prior Earth-like civilizations, non-human, rising and vanishing. In every case, something triggered a containment field, a planetary reset, not by war or plague, but by design. We're not looking at a civilization, Sally whispered. We're looking at a garden, one that prunes itself. Kal-El nodded. And the humans are just the current growth. For the first time, the conflict was no longer external. It was internal, philosophical. Should they warn the humans, intervene, or back away from a system clearly designed to function without external influence? But before they could answer, something changed. The Ethon Primaris began to lose connection with its forward scouts. Ships in high orbit went dark, not destroyed, but erased. Their telemetry vanished. No debris, no signal, only silence. Vel's fingers trembled as he analyzed the failure. It's not a weapon. It's something else. Space folded around them. Not natural. Not gravitational. Something is rewriting physical law. Kal-El stared out the viewport. Earth hung below, quiet, peaceful. But it wasn't peace. It was restraint. She's warning us, he said. This isn't retaliation. It's mercy. They had trespassed beyond curiosity. They had triggered a system older than memory. And yet, Kal-El sensed something else beneath the threat. Regret. The memory inside the core had included more than cycles of destruction. It had shown a moment, brief, indistinct, of harmony. A civilization that had understood the planet, lived in accordance with its rhythm. But it was short-lived and never repeated. Maybe it's waiting, he murmured. Not for us. For them. For the humans. Sally shook her head. They're not ready. They weren't meant to be ready, he replied. They were meant to become ready. Outside, the storms above Antarctica cleared. A single flash of white light surged up through the clouds, striking nothing, aimed at nothing, but it crossed the orbit of the probe. And in that instant, the entire data archive of the signal copied itself into Ethon's mainframe. It wasn't just a message. It was a test. A final transmission, encoded in living light. Do not interfere. The awakening is not yours to guide. Kal-El stood motionless as the translation scrolled across the display. The fleet would have to leave, not in defeat, but in reverence. He watched Earth from the observation deck, the curve of its horizon glowing with life and secrets. A planet, not a chance, but a choice. The decision to ascend or fall belonged to them. And somewhere, deep in the ice, the memory sphere pulsed once more, then dimmed, as if it, too, had finally said all it needed. The air in the Ethon Primaris grew thin, not in substance, but in spirit. Every corridor echoed with a hush that even the ship's hum could not fill. Kal-El walked those corridors slowly, each step measured, as if movement itself was a language the planet might misinterpret. Earth had made its boundaries clear, and for the first time in centuries, the Ascendants did not know whether they had been spared or sentenced. Sally monitored Earth's surface from the command deck. Human activity is increasing near the Antarctic field, she said, voice calm but taut. Their scientists have detected the pulse. Kal-El joined her at the console. The screen showed grainy thermal images, human figures bundled in heavy coats unloading equipment onto a barren ice shelf. Tents flapped in polar wind. Snow vehicles moved in slow arcs. Curious, methodical, and unaware of the silence beneath them. They're not ready, he said softly. No, but they're coming anyway. One of the figures stood still, longer than the others. A woman, young by human standards. Her face, magnified through several lenses, was calm but focused. She looked not at her instruments, but toward the ice horizon, as if listening to something the others couldn't hear. Her name, the ship's translator found, was Dr. Lara Quinn, geophysicist, data analyst, and the only member of her team to have submitted independent theories about electromagnetic anomalies in the region. The council had ignored her. Funding had been cut. She'd come anyway. She's hearing it, Sally said, almost with reverence. She feels it, Kal-El corrected. In his private quarters, he replayed Earth's final message again. Not to interfere. Not to guide. The implication was clear. This evolution must be earned, not given. And yet, the humans were already on the threshold, unaware, unequipped, but persistent. He watched Alara's footage. Her notes, raw and handwritten, spilled thoughts no one else read. This signal isn't noise, one entry read. It's rhythm, like a heartbeat filtered through stone. Another. We are standing on something that wants us to learn, or to remember. Kal-El could not help but feel drawn to her, not out of sentiment, but purpose. If Earth was indeed a vault of memory, then perhaps Alara was its key. Meanwhile, the fleet grew restless. Sub-commanders whispered a retreat. Vel warned that Earth's field fluctuations had begun to affect onboard AI, causing brief lapses in navigation and timekeeping. No harm yet, but an escalating pattern. Earth was not attacking. It was adjusting. The ship is adapting to the planet, Vel said, or the planet is adapting to the ship. Kal-El stared out at the blue world. Or both. The internal conflict now sharpened into a razor's edge. Obey the mandate and leave, preserving non-interference, or remain, risking escalation. But there was a third path, one Kal-El had not dared consider. Contact, not with governments, not with power structures, but with one individual. A whisper, a nudge, a single thread in the tapestry, left untouched but turned ever so slightly toward light. He summoned Sally and Vel to the neural array. We're going to reach her, he said. Sally's face hardened. The council will see it as contamination. We don't give her knowledge. We give her clarity. Vel looked skeptical. You mean a vision? Kal-El nodded. Let her decide if she's ready. Inside the array, the connection was delicate. Human minds were noisy, layered in memory, fear, and emotion. A direct interface would burn her neurons. But dreams were malleable. Echoes, an Earth signal already pulsed in her subconscious. Through careful tuning, Kal-El shaped the transmission, imagery, not language. A vast chamber, a humming sphere, a choice offered, not imposed. Then he sent it, wrapped in harmonics aligned with her brain's resting frequency. On Earth, Illyria Quinn sat outside her tent, notebook in hand, staring at nothing. The snow drifted past her eyes unnoticed. Inside her mind, something ancient stirred. The world around her fell away. She stood in a cathedral of ice, beneath a sky she didn't recognize. And there at the center, the sphere floated, alive, watching her. She approached, not afraid, not curious, just sure. When she reached it, the sphere pulsed once and the dream ended. She woke up gasping. Kal-El watched her through the ship's external lenses. She saw it. Sally crossed her arms. And if she breaks, if she goes mad, then she wasn't the one. But she didn't break. Illyria returned to her team, and everything changed. Her readings aligned, devices recalibrated. She found resonance points in the ice where previously there was only noise. The others began to follow her lead, confused but trusting. They didn't see what she saw, but they knew something had shifted. Kal-El withdrew all active probes. The fleet entered a passive orbit, leaving only one beacon behind, silent, unintrusive, invisible to human detection. Vel approached him in the observation chamber. You're really going to let them walk into it blind? They're not blind anymore. Vel frowned. Then why do I feel like we've started something we can't stop? Kal-El didn't answer. He couldn't. Earth was changing, or perhaps revealing itself. And Illyria Quinn, without knowing why, was moving toward the core of something no human had touched for 10,000 years. Far below, beneath the ice, the structure stirred. Lights blinked in patterns lost to time. The sphere pulsed again once, and waited. The wind screamed across the Antarctic plateau, but Illyria Quinn barely noticed. Her breath fogged around her as she trudged forward, flanked by her reluctant team. The instruments weighed heavy in their packs, yet heavier still was the sense that they were crossing some invisible line. Each step down the ice trench toward the subglacial fissure brought a pressure she couldn't explain, like being watched but by the world itself. No one questioned her anymore, not since the dream. She hadn't spoken of it, not in full. How could she? A floating sphere suspended in airless silence, whispering ideas into her thoughts with neither words nor voice. She had only told them what they needed to hear. A pattern had emerged, the data was replicable, and the anomaly was growing. That had been enough. Still, doubt gnawed at the others. They followed her out of inertia, not conviction. But the planet had chosen her. From the orbital deck of the Ethon Primaris, Kal-El observed without interference. Illyria was within half a kilometer of the buried chamber. Her equipment had started registering seismic pulses, not tremors, but time movements. Rhythmic, almost like breathing. Sally watched beside him, arms crossed. If she opens it, there's no going back. She's not opening a door, Kal-El replied. She's accepting a responsibility. The humans reached the entry chasm, a narrow slit in the glacial shelf, black as obsidian and seemingly bottomless. Illyria kneeled by the edge, ran a gloved hand along the etched rock. Her instruments clicked, a resonance spike. She felt it, not as vibration, but as a deep internal pull, like being drawn into the gravity of her own thoughts. Then the ice shifted. The trench widened without cracking, as though something underneath had exhaled. Her team scrambled back, panicked. She stood still. A ring of light appeared around the fissure's rim, ice refracting with subtle color. Illyria took a cautious step forward. The signal from her headset crackled. "I need to go down alone," she said. The response was a flurry of protests. She shut them out and turned off the comms. In orbit, Vel's data stream blinked with alerts. "She's descending." Kal-El nodded. "And Earth is letting her." The vertical shaft wasn't a natural crevice. Its walls were smooth, marked with subtle glyphs too ancient for language and too deliberate for erosion. as Alara rappelled deeper. Her floodlight flickered against surfaces that seemed to move ever so slightly when unlit. Time felt warped elastic. Her breath came faster, but she wasn't afraid. She was aligned. At the bottom, the chamber opened. Massive. Impossible. The walls were neither metal nor stone, but some material that seemed to hum with warmth. Above her, no ceiling, just black void. And in the center, the sphere floated, just as she'd seen. It turned slowly, though it had no surface to define such movement. Its core shimmered with internal storms, flashes of blue and violet that hinted at entire worlds folded inside. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't alive. But it knew her. She approached without hesitation. A pulse. From orbit, Carell staggered. She's activated it. Solly breathed. No, he whispered. She answered it. Inside the chamber, Alara felt her mind stretched and compressed. Not in pain, but in clarity. Memories unfolded, not hers, but human history replayed as it compressed into song. Not facts, but echoes. She saw civilizations rise before agriculture, cities that bent to magnetic fields, then vanished in cycles of silence, over and over. Each time, the same pattern. Knowledge ascended too quickly, harmony was lost, and the system reset. And she saw something more. A choice. Earth had been seeded, not just biologically, but consciously. Not by aliens, but by forces beyond form. The sphere wasn't a prison. It was a tutor. The resets weren't punishment. They were mercy. Trials. Each version of humanity a new draft. And now, perhaps a final one. The sphere glowed brighter. A tether of light reached toward her chest. Not touching, but connecting. She closed her eyes and saw herself not as she was, but as she could be, part of a species not mastering Earth, but becoming of it, listening, coexisting, building with the grain of the planet's will. She opened her eyes. The chamber shifted. Walls bent inward, creating a vortex of symbols, maps, data. Not gifted. Shown. She could take it. All of it. Knowledge that would leap humanity 1,000 years ahead in a heartbeat. Energy systems. Medical cures. Cognitive expansion. But the memory was clear. In each past cycle, when that knowledge had been seized, it led to ruin. The gift was not the knowledge. It was a path. She stepped back, and the sphere dimmed. In space, the ethon systems registered the cessation of anomalous fields. Readings stabilized. The AI recovered. She refused it, Vel said, stunned. No, Carell said. She understood it. Back in the chamber, the sphere retracted its light. The glyphs around the room faded. The air grew cold again, natural, real. Alara turned and ascended. When she emerged from the trench, her team ran to her, relieved, confused, demanding answers. She gave none, just a single sentence. We are not alone, but we are not meant to be led. Later, in her tent, she wrote the truth, not for immediate publication, not for fame, but for safekeeping. She wrote of a memory passed from stone to thought, of a planet not merely alive, but aware, of warnings and hope. Above, the Ethon Primaris initiated its departure sequence. We've seen enough, Solly said. Carell nodded. More than we were meant to. As the ship moved beyond Earth's orbit, the planet turned quietly beneath them, unchanged, yet entirely different. No alarms, no retaliation, just waiting to see what its children would choose to become.